sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. For this week on Outlaws of Style, you are watching Paranormal Week. Enjoy. Hey everybody, this is Mars. If you believe in the paranormal, growing up as I was little, I've dealt with a lot of stuff, seeing things, hearing things. Yes, and it's been in my entire family. I live in a certain part of Texas where a lot of people are superstitious and believe in that. We live very close to Mexico, so there's a lot of people that also practice brujeria, which is black magic, white magic, santeria, just like all sorts of stuff. I mean, you can even go see curanderas, which are also known as witch doctors or healers, but all sorts of stuff like that is here in my town. So okay, so I've lived in my apartment for about 5 years now, and within the span of the last, I want to say 10 to 11 months now, it's almost been about a year, things started happening in my home. I heard something come from the living room, and it sounded like somebody dropped something, and I couldn't figure out what it was, and when I turned, all I heard was just somebody go, shh. And then my bathroom door shut downstairs. So I was thinking, okay, well, maybe the AC created a suction and caused the door to close because it's underneath my stairs. So then I got to the point where I was laying in bed and you could see a crack between the mini blinds from the outside neighbor's light that was shining in my window, and it always looked like if somebody was standing at my bedroom door, but you could only see the shadow of a person. Then it got to the point where I would lay in bed with the lights off and I just had a lamp on and then the light from my laptop, and I could see a shadow at the edge of my bed, and the shadow got bigger. Ooh, I'm getting the heebie-jeebies now that I'm talking about it. Okay, the shadow just got bigger, and then it started to feel like if somebody was crawling into bed. So like if you're laying in bed, imagine the feeling of somebody laying down next to you, the bed sinks in. So that's how it started, and then it got worse. Then it got to the point where it felt like somebody was leaning on me and touching me, and I would get really, really bad headaches and nausea. And so I was just like, okay, I'm losing it. And then it got to the point where I was laying in bed and it felt like somebody was laying behind me, and I could feel like somebody was running their fingers through my hair, and that freaked me out. And then imagine you're laying in bed and you feel like somebody's like going like this with your hair, and then in your ear, all you hear is like right in my ear, and I flipped, got all my stuff, and I was crying, and I showed up at my mom's house, and I was just like, Mom, I don't know what to do. I was freaking out and crying. So I stayed with my mother for 2 weeks. Then I said, you know what? Okay. Anyways, after that, then came back home. Things were going okay, and then it started again. Like, it started to escalate, and the breathing turned into growling. And I have a dog. I'm going to include a little bit of a video footage of how she responds, but she will sit there and stare at the edge of my bed or a corner of my room, and she puts her head down with her ears back, and she just growls. Anyways, I finally agreed to have the Valley Paranormal group come and investigate my home. Don't be standoffish about this whole issue. So we come inside, we sit at the table, and he's like, do you mind if I record our conversation? And I said, no, not at all. So he busts out a recorder, which is with an EVP recorder, and that way in case there's anything that he can pick up on that would be there while he was recording our conversation. So he starts asking me these questions about what happened, how did it start, did I ever play with like the Ouija board and things like that. And I was telling him of how it all got started when I lived with my mother. And when I was growing up, of all the stuff that we used to see and hear. And so then he says, well, whatever it is, it seems to be coming from that house. And I said, well, why would it just pick me? And he's like, well, it usually goes for the weakest link. And I was the youngest one. So I'm like, okay. So he's like, well, do you mind if I walk around and I take some photos of the place? And I'm like, okay. And I'm really sorry, guys. I was trying to see if I could get the photos for this, but I haven't gotten them. He's on Facebook, so I'm going to see if he can send me the video. I'm going to ask him for a copy of the video that they recorded and some of the photos. So if anybody cares, I'll maybe post them on the Outlaws of Style Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Outlaws of Style. And with what was going on, he started to take pictures, and he set the EVP recorder down. The light was on. He set it down on the table. So he starts taking photos, and when he takes photos of the kitchen, everything's fine, and then suddenly he takes a photo right above where we were. And I turned off all the lights. And the photo right above where we were, there was 3 orbs. He's like, we're going to walk upstairs, and before we walk upstairs, and he takes a photo of the staircase, and nothing. So then I start walking up the staircase, and he takes another photo. Nothing. So then he starts walking up the stairs and takes another photo, and then you can see those 3 orbs. And I mean, I'm not saying that they're the same ones, but when they were in motion, it almost like if they had a tail. Then we come into my room, and in this spare bedroom, he found 5 orbs. Then he went into my bathroom, didn't find anything, and then in my bedroom, he found 7 orbs. 7 orbs. And I have this really long mirror, which you'll probably see in one of the clips that I put of my dog. I was in the shot, and he said things sometimes appear in the reflection of a mirror. So I was in the shot, and I said, oh, sorry, let me move out of the way. And my leg was still in frame when he took the photo. And this is what was creepy. So then in the photo, he zoomed in and said, like, what's that? And when he looked at my leg, ooh, I'm getting the chills just thinking about it, okay? When he looked at my leg, it looked as if there was a shadow or something that was coming out of my right calf, which at first glance, you'll look at it and it looks like a shadow. But when you zoom in, it almost looks like a silhouette of like a person. Like it has a head and then the shoulders, but imagine like a tiny person. And it has like it's, I don't know how to describe it. I really hope I can get a copy of this photo, but it looks like if somebody's like reaching over like this, and the hand looked like a real thin twig with 5 sticks at the end, which I could only assume was a hand. And he was telling me, this is not human. And I was like, okay, should I be scared? What's going on? And we went over there, and he turned off all the lights. He's had night vision cameras, an EMF detector, the EVP recorder, and he set them up. The weird thing is that in the extra part of the house that they built into my mother's house, that part of the house has always been really creepy. So when we were in the living room, we had he was recording, and it was my mom and my sister and me. All right. So when we're in the living room, he asked me if I could help him and hold one of the cameras. And so I grabbed the camera, and in the night vision, I'm looking, and I'm like, oh my God, like there was orbs that were moving all over the place. And I thought I was like, how can we not see this? It's amazing how we can't see this, but a night vision camera can pick it up. I mean, I kid you not, there was at least 10 to 15 orbs that were moving around. And then we went into the other room where he had a camera set up that was facing towards the bed. And before we did anything, oh my God, I've got the goosebumps. Oh my God. Before, like, he fixed the bed, that way if anybody touched the bed, we could see it. And you could hear papers rustling in my mom's room. You could hear kids laughing. And then there were handprints that were this size on the mirror that were creepy. And what was crazy is that when he was setting up the camera, you could see the light and then the bed on the actual thing of the camera. So he's like, okay, fixing it. He walks away, we go to the other room, we come back, the camera is off. So he turns it back on. When he turned the camera back on, he could see the light, but the bed wasn't there anymore. So he would put his hand in front of it and he could see his hand, but when he moved his hand, you couldn't see past the camera other than like 5 inches. But a minute ago, before it was turned off, you could see all the way to the bed. So he's like, there's something standing in front of here. And we were like, what? Okay, and then we came back to the camera like 5 minutes later, and then you could suddenly see the bed. So I don't know. He even took photos in the home in negative. He said that he could see things better that way. And he took a photo in one of the rooms and you could see a silhouette of a man and a child. And we came to my house, and this is where things get weird. So we come to my house, I bring my sister and my mom's neighbor, which is friends with the guy that has the paranormal group. So then he's like, where do you have most of the activity? And I said, in my bedroom. That's where most of the activity is. So he's like, okay. So we come upstairs, we set up, the camera, and he's got like all these sort of things around me, and it happens when I lay in bed. So he asked me to lay in bed, and he was sitting on the floor, and it was just the camera, me, and him, and he starts asking all these questions. He's like, I don't mean to scare you, but I'm going to try to provoke it. And I'm like, oh my god, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. So I'm like asking him, like, okay, like, he's like, just tell me what happened. So he starts asking and talking or whatever, and I'm like, okay, I feel it. I feel it. It's on the bed right now. And so he's like, okay, I don't feel anything. And he's like, well, can you knock on the wall? Can you do something? And nothing happens. So then he's like, well, how come you're only messing with her? And blah, blah, blah. And then suddenly I start to feel this pressure on my lap, and I have this horrible headache. So he walks up to the camera, and I reviewed the footage afterwards, and I have a white mist over my lap, and then an orb by my head. And then I'm like, it feels like something is pulling on my pants. And he's just like, so he gets this camera, and he starts recording, well, taking photos with the camera. And he's like, I don't see anything. And I go, he puts his hand on my leg, like slightly hovering over it, and you could feel my pants moving. And he's like, oh my God, I can feel it. So he took another photo, and there was white mist again. And then he's like, okay, well, why do you keep picking on her? Why don't you show you do something to me? And nothing would happen to him. And then again, I would feel real sick, like if something was pushing on me, and I'd get nauseous. And then he'd look at the camera and take a photo. And then I was like, there was mist all over me, and I had orbs that were surrounding me. So then I have a small audio footage. I don't have night vision on my cell phone, so it's just audio. If I find a decent clip, then I'll insert that amount of the clip in there. But, so then we leave the room, and he's like, well, let's bring in your sister and see if it responds to her. So he's trying to think that maybe it's a woman, because, I'll get into that in a moment. Okay, so then he thinks that maybe just doing it to a woman. So she gets into bed with me, and we're laying down, and then suddenly there's nothing. So then we're like, okay, so then let's leave the room, and we'll just leave the camera running by itself. When we reviewed the footage afterwards, there were, I don't know, like 8 to 10 orbs that were circling the room. I mean, like disco lights, like all over the place, big and small ones. And you can tell a dust particle will fall straight down. These were literally going like moving around like a spotlight. And when I was laying down in the bed, they were only surrounding me. When we left the room, the orbs were going on the bed right where I was laying. When we came back, there was nothing in the room on the camera when we reviewed the footage. When we left the room, immediately the orbs came back into the room, and they were going right where I was laying down. That's pretty crazy. That's my story. I'm going to try to chop a lot of this out because it's a long story, but whatever is haunting me is still haunting me, and it is not human. I've been informed by several people already that it could possibly be an incubus because it has gotten inappropriate with me. Best way that I could describe it would be is romantic. But yeah, so they have, I mean, I even saw curandera. That's like a whole other story, but they're going to have something to have me cleansed, to see what that is. But that's my story. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any paranormal stories, then comment below. I'm scared. Like, I'm even scared right now just talking about it, but I find it very fascinating. But I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and thanks for watching. Bye.